Well, we've reached the end of the year, and with that comes the time to count down my favorite films of the previous year. In this case, 2015, which had its fair share of inspiring and wondrous movies that either took us to new worlds or properly revisited classics. This is, of course, my own personal list, and as such, these are the ones that left me the most impressed. Starting at number 10 is a wild throwback to classic spy films with a new twist. Kingsman: The Secret Service. I greatly enjoyed Matthew Vaughn's previous Mark Millar adaptation, Kick-Ass, and with this film he seemed intent to go even crazier with the genre handed to him. In this case, he takes the James Bond film and flips it on its head, creating quite a wild ride. The action scenes are really well directed, but what makes them work is that all the characters are genuinely interesting. Eggsy is a likable lead, and Colin Firth shows he could have been a really good Bond had he been asked to play the role. This is even a film that's able to take an otherwise silly-sounding Samuel L. Jackson and make him a rather threatening presence. It's a movie that does not take itself the least bit seriously, while also having a bit of solid satire thrown in for good measure. At number 9, we have a 1950s set romance that works because it treats the main love that propels the story as just that. Carol. Todd Haynes tapped into the Douglas Sirk influence well before with Far From Heaven, and while I really like that movie, I think Carol is even better. Mostly due to how great the chemistry between Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara is. It's a genuine love there, and despite the time period it's set in, the film doesn't make a big deal with the fact that they're both women. It's an absolutely touching relationship with Haynes' direction and Phyllis Nagy's screenplay having the right subtle nuances in portraying them. They go through real emotion and real setbacks, and that makes the romance that much more believable. I think it's certainly the best love story of the year. My number 8 pick is a unique look into the mindset of a famous tech wizard. Steve Jobs. When Aaron Sorkin set about to write a movie about the Apple co-founder, he didn't want to make a standard biopic, and that's precisely why this works so well. The decision to have it consist of just 3 sequences set before different product launches was a smart one, and Sorkin's great dialogue keeps us riveted throughout. Danny Boyle directs it almost like a play, yet remarkably is also able to make the film very cinematic. Mostly it's a film about relationships, and whether this is factual or not, the script does a great job of tapping into how his friendships and alliances evolved over the years. Of course, Michael Fassbender is excellent as Jobs. Even if he doesn't entirely look like him, I still believed I was watching Jobs, and Fassbender gives a layered and nuanced performance here. Next up, at number 7, I have the latest space adventure from an iconic director. The Martian. Ridley Scott is a director not known for having a sense of humor, but he was able to display that in this story of survival. Thanks to a witty script by Drew Goddard, this was actually a surprisingly funny movie, and yet the tension was still there. Mark Watney is a very proactive character, and he certainly knows the danger he's in, while still keeping an upbeat attitude, and that makes him likable. It might even be Matt Damon's strongest performance to date. Even the use of disco tunes on the soundtrack was cleverly done here. The scenes back on Earth also have a genuine comedic bent to them, and each of the ensemble is perfectly chosen to elevate the already exceptional screenplay. I really like Ridley Scott as a director, but I certainly never expected such a breezy and uplifting movie from the filmmaker behind Alien and Blade Runner. This is certainly closer in spirit to Matchstick Men than it is to Prometheus. My number 6 pick is a film that continues to show why Steven Spielberg is one of the master directors. Bridge of Spies. This was another film I did not expect to be as breezy as it was, but it ends up as a film that could sit right alongside the likes of Catch Me If You Can on the shelf. Part of that is certainly the script co-written by the Coen brothers, but also the way it tackles the Cold War era. There are actually no villains in this film, but rather 2 sides scared of the other during a period of extreme paranoia. Tom Hanks continues to bring his everyman chops, But the real revelation here is Mark Rylance in a subtle performance as a man tried for being a spy and just calmly awaiting the potential outcome. This is mostly a film about negotiations, and yet Spielberg keeps it moving and fascinating and gripping as all the pieces come together in a very satisfying way. At number 5 is a biopic that actually manages to rewrite the biopic handbook in a really refreshing way. Joy. Steve Jobs and Bridge of Spies aside, I found a lot of the end-of-year biographical films to be stodgy by the numbers and frankly better suited for television. Not so with Joy. David O. Russell is almost mocking the standard practice of writing biopics by playing with time and even making fun of the standard conventions like the inspiration scene. He even mostly focuses on Joy attaining her success rather than her being a millionaire later on, and she thus becomes somebody who evolves in major ways. Jennifer Lawrence is also a large reason for the film being so good, because she is magnificent. It's an excellent performance that shows a woman dealing with a lot in her life and overcoming it, and I was along for the ride from the beginning. More biopics like Joy, please. My choice for number 4 is a very important documentary detailing a message that really does need to be heard. The Hunting Ground. After detailing the rape cases within the military and the excellent The Invisible War, the horrible events that happen on college campuses was the next logical step. Kirby Dick and his producer Amy Ziering deserve equal credit for how they detail the horrible things that happen to these college students and the constant hoops they have to struggle through to get heard. They outline the facts clear on screen, and it's hard not to get outraged. The way the entire film is edited and pieced together is expertly done, and the film does not flinch in betraying some of the culture and what goes on behind the scenes when dealing with these cases. It's a must-see film with stories that need to be heard. Meanwhile, my number 3 pick is a film that certainly a lot of people have seen at this point, as the box office numbers have clearly shown. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams had a lot of pressure on him to deliver a worthy continuation of the classic saga, and he succeeded with flying colors. Yes, it uses a couple of elements borrowed from previous films, but it's mainly to bring us back to the world and introduce us to these wonderful new characters. Rey is already a hero for the ages, and the decision to focus on a stormtrooper wondering about his place in a galaxy far, far away was certainly a smart one. Even the new villain and the Empire-like First Order are threatening forces, and I like how the film developed them in a way that made them genuine foes. The space battles are spectacular, with a great mixture of practical and computer-generated effects. The film could have not lived up to the hype and opening scroll, but it did. It was a glorious adventure with wonderful new people to follow and some great old friends who have not lost any of their spark. It showed the Star Wars legacy is in great hands at Disney. Speaking of honoring legacies, my number 2 is my favorite animated film of the year. The Peanuts movie. Like Star Wars, there was a lot of pressure to get this right. Well, the team at Blue Sky Studios, the Schultz family, and director Steve Mattino did not disappoint. This was a family film not afraid of being quieter and taking us back to the cozy and melancholy strips of Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and their friends. This was a smart and funny screenplay that also tugged at the heartstrings. It told a real story about a boy just wanting to succeed and just having the world constantly be against him, and who doesn't relate to that? The voice acting from the young children was on point, and the film also cleverly intertwined Snoopy's Red Baron adventure with Charlie Brown's more down-to-earth story. Throw in some state-of-the-art animation that perfectly captures Charles M. Schultz's recognizable drawing style, and you have a film that deserves to sit alongside the classic specials. And my number 1 favorite film is one that got an instant reaction from people. Some people loved it for its optimistic message, while others hated it because they thought it was too pandering. I found it made my heart soar to new heights from start to finish. That movie is Tomorrowland. With this film, Brad Bird sought to bring to life Walt Disney's vision of the future, as first outlined in his original idea for Epcot, and what a beautiful and touching tribute this is, while also highlighting an important message. Why have we grown pessimistic? Why did we let climate change and constant warfare affect our idea of the future, leading to better lives? After an early peek at Tomorrowland that shows the future we should be living in, Bird takes the audience on an exciting adventure with quite a memorable set of characters, two of which are probably my favorites of the year. With the optimistic and hopeful Casey and the courageous and quick-witted Athena, we have two protagonists we should aspire to be like. It all culminates in Bird turning to us to ask, why don't we help save the future? It's an emotional climax that rubs some people the wrong way, but it really hit me on a personal and emotional level. To me, it captured that Spielbergian sense of wonder and imagination and seeking to find a better world. Thank you, Brad Bird, for this wonderful and touching film, and a perfect reminder that there's still time to make the world a better place, and maybe, just maybe, the real Epcot and Tomorrowland can come into existence. Well, those are my favorite films of 2015. Tune in, well, tomorrow, as I count down the movies this year I wasn't, let's just say, particularly fond of.